What if a single 40-minute blackout could erase nearly half a superpower's rocket fuel? 2:30 a.m. The 21st of October, 2025. The Bryansk sky slept under a blanket of false security. Then, in less time than it takes to brew a pot of coffee, 3 precision Storm Shadow missiles and a swarm of 18 disposable FPV drones turned that calm into catastrophe. The strike, engineered down to the second, would scorch 14 square miles, register as a $690 million loss on satellite feeds, and wipe out roughly 38% of Russia's solid fuel propellant capacity. This was not brute force. It was maths. 3 missiles, plus 18 drones, plus 1 thermal confirmation equals strategic paralysis. Between 2:30 and 3:40 a.m., rail hubs stopped, ammo lines froze, and a 260 square mile radar blind spot opened on the front. Tonight I'll walk you through how a handful of cheap drones and smart missiles rewrote the rules of modern warfare. Would you have seen it coming from inside that bunker? 2:30 a.m., the 21st of October 2025. The sky erupted before anyone in the bunker even knew to look. The attack opens not with a warning but with motion. 18 flashlit FPV drones screaming like a swarm of angry fireflies cutting a bright scar across the black. Less than 30 seconds behind them, 3 Storm Shadow cruise missiles, each a blunt, 3,000-pound promise of destruction, cleaved through the night at roughly 600 miles per hour. The first impact was already being written before the Bryansk radar had finished its next sweep. The choreography was brutal in its simplicity and terrifying in its precision. 2 Sioux, 24 seconds from the south, released 1 Storm Shadow. A heavy Akunu drone from the west spat another. A third rode low and quiet out of a makeshift launcher 45 miles away. The missiles rode valleys and tree lines at 100-200 feet altitude, their terrain-following systems keeping them invisible to horizons meant for high flyers. The escort drones, collectively worth under $100,000, served a single, unapologetic purpose: to be seen, to be blown to pieces, to buy 3 minutes of confusion. Each drone moved at about 120-140 miles per hour. Each interceptor launched to counter them would cost the defender roughly $1.5 million apiece. Inside a cramped van, 2 clicks from the plant, an operator confirmed the kill condition: the TOS-1. A furnace burned at 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit on the thermal overlay, a hot, irrefutable green on the screen. That reading flipped the final switch. Radio chatter stilled. Pre-flight timers hit 0. The swarm surged forward as a noisy, sacrificial veil. A handful of drones were programmed to ignite on impact, designed to create black smoke palls that would bloom 3,000 feet into the air and mask the true trajectory of the missiles. So the opening gambit was simple arithmetic. 3 missiles plus 18 disposable drones plus 1 thermal confirmation equals a corridor of violence. In under 90 seconds, the night had been transformed into an engineered catastrophe. Inside the Bryansk Air Defense Command bunker, the air was stale, a mix of metal, sweat, and overconfidence. An operator hunched over the S-400 console, his eyes tracing the same green circular sweep that had shown nothing for 49 straight hours. He took another sip of bitter coffee. No blips. No noise. Just silence, the kind that makes you believe you're safe. But outside, 80 miles away, that illusion was seconds from burning out. At 2:47 a.m., the first faint flicker appeared on the radar. A cluster of small, erratic signals, each dancing like static. To the software, they looked like cheap drones, nothing worth worrying about. The operator flagged it, shrugged, and logged it as false positives. That small decision would cost his command hundreds of millions of dollars within 10 minutes. Here's where I want you to imagine this. You're in that bunker, half awake, watching a radar worth $300 million, protected by 6 Pantsir S-1 batteries and 2 full S-400 regiments hardware, designed to spot a stealth bomber at 250 miles. Suddenly, your screen fills with chaos. 18 radar returns, some moving 100 miles per hour, some 600. Your algorithms can't decide which to kill first. What would you do? Fire blindly or wait for confirmation? They fired. 10 interceptors launched at once, 10 missiles, each costing nearly $1.2 million, to destroy targets worth less than the price of a used car. 5 drones were vaporized instantly. Their debris fell into the Desna River and lit the sky in oily black smoke. To the Russian command, it looked like victory. Radar clutter gone. Airspace clear. But in reality, they had just purchased a smokescreen with their own ammunition. Under that haze, 3 storm shadows were already slipping through the gaps, invisible, hugging the tree line at 150 feet altitude. Their onboard AI calculated every contour, every shadow, every river bend. The Bryansk radar could see the smoke, but not the missiles that caused it. And this is the turning point. The moment where arrogance meets engineering. Because as those operators celebrated, one quiet line of code in the Ukrainian targeting uplink blinked green. Target corridor secured. Phase 2 authorized. The hunt was no longer about defense, it was about survival. Stay with me because in the next minutes the Russians will unleash every electronic weapon they have. And yet, it won't matter. At 2:57 a.m., the sky over Bryansk dissolved into noise. The surviving 13 FPV drones, their motors whining like angry hornets, split into separate formations. 5 climbed high, to mimic fast-moving cruise missiles. The rest skimmed just above the treetops, deliberately messy, unpredictable, and loud. Each carried a transmitter smaller than a matchbox, broadcasting falsified radar echoes encoded with a Kalman filter distortion loop. To Russian radar, the swarm looked like a fleet of advanced munitions. The system screamed warnings. Multiple inbound missiles. Altitude variable speed inconsistent. The Pantsir batteries scrambled to lock on. Within 40 seconds, they launched 9 more interceptors, each worth $1.4 million, chasing ghosts across the sky. The cost of confusion had now surpassed $20 million, and the real attack hadn't even arrived. The burning remains of downed drones rained into the Desna, generating a haze thick enough to swallow the horizon. That smoke, though accidental in appearance, had been modeled to rise 2,500 feet, a perfect natural radar barrier. Operators on the ground saw nothing but static. Their targeting feeds blinked red and dropped offline one by one. Through that haze, 3 storm shadows continued their silent crawl toward the target zone. Flying under 200 feet, each missile adjusted course with microsecond precision, their onboard systems comparing live terrain scans to preloaded maps accurate to within 8 feet. Every second of chaos bought them another kilometer of invisibility, and above that river of smoke, a single faint signature appeared, just one line on a radar screen. But it wasn't what it seemed. It was the beginning of Russia's biggest blind spot. By 3:10 a.m., the Bryansk air defense grid had fully awakened, but too late, and facing the wrong direction. The command tower's frequency spectrum was flooded with decoy echoes, each one mimicking a storm shadow's radar profile. In desperation, the regional commander activated the Krasuka 5 electronic warfare system, unleashing a jamming storm that stretched across a 190-meter radius. The entire western sector's GPS grid flickered and went dark. For most missiles, that blackout would have been fatal, but not these. Each storm shadow carried a layered guidance brain, an inertial navigation system paired with digital scene matching area correlation. The instant GPS vanished, the missiles switched to internal mapping, comparing every tree line, river bend, and roof reflection against a preloaded library of 2.4 terabytes of satellite imagery. Even with their electronic eyes half blind, they navigated within a margin of 9 feet. At treetop height roughly 180 feet, above ground the lead missile cleared the Desna River. Its pressure sensors registered turbulence from explosions behind it, Pantsir interceptors detonating against false targets. Inside the bunker, operators watched their radar feeds collapse into static. The system they trusted, the billion-dollar firewall, had just turned into a wall of fog. Outside, the 3 storm shadows sliced through the air, invisible, inaudible, unstoppable. Every defense frequency in Bryansk was now deafened by its own power. And as the jamming storm intensified, the missiles were already inside the final 20-kilometer corridor, flying blind by human standards, but not by their own. In 12 minutes, those coordinates would no longer exist. At 3:15 a.m., the Russian Air Command responded with everything it had left. 2 Su-35 flankers tore into the night, afterburners slicing the sky at Mach 1.8. Their mission: locate and eliminate the Ukrainian launch platforms before a second strike could be launched. Below, the S-400 operators reacquired partial radar feeds, enough to detect movement, but not enough to tell truth from illusion. Ukraine had planned for this. From 32,000 feet, a pair of Mi-G-29 seconds revealed their hidden payloads. ADM-160 MAL decoys, each a $300,000 flying algorithm built to impersonate the radar signature of a full-size strike aircraft. Within seconds, they filled the screens of the Russian radar network with phantom targets. To the defenders, it appeared as if a squadron of bombers had just entered Bryansk airspace. The deception forced a split-second mistake. The Su-35 seconds banked hard toward the false contacts, while the S-400 battery shifted targeting priority to the new swarm. At the same moment, Ukraine's electronic team unleashed AGM-88 HARM missiles, weapons that don't hunt aircraft but the radars guiding them. Traveling at Mach 2, they locked onto the emissions from the S-400 fire control system and closed the loop. Within 90 seconds, one radar array went dark. The operators, realizing the signal was being traced, powered down the rest to survive. In that silence, the defense grid blinded itself completely. Above the forest canopy, the three storm shadows advanced, unopposed and unseen. The hunters had become the hunted, and Bryansk's shield had just turned into its coffin. At 3:24 a.m., the three storm shadows crossed the final defensive ring. Each had been assigned a separate coordinate: the rocket propellant depot, the MLRS assembly hall, and the TOS-1, a furnace chamber glowing at 1,850 degrees Fahrenheit deep beneath the Bryansk chemical plant. The missiles approached in perfect triangulation, their onboard systems syncing by millisecond. The first missile hit the assembly hall at a speed of 590 miles per hour, piercing through 16 feet of reinforced concrete before its delayed charge detonated. The structure folded inward, pressure waves tearing machinery apart with industrial precision. The second missile slammed into the propellant depot, igniting 220,000 liters of stored fuel, an eruption so bright it registered as a new thermal anomaly on weather satellites. But the third strike was the one that broke the system. The missile aimed at the furnace chamber punched straight into the molten core. Inside that confined space, heat met velocity. The result was a pressure chain that amplified itself exponentially. For 4.7 seconds, the plant became its own weapon. Windows shattered 20 miles away. Sensors on the Desna River recorded shockwaves traveling through the water. When the dust settled, the Bryansk facility no longer existed. What remained were twisted steel arcs, scorched conveyor lines, and a plume of vaporized ammonium nitrate drifting 6,000 feet into the air. The economic cost was estimated at $680 million, but the strategic loss was far greater: 37% of Russia's solid fuel capacity erased in under 1 minute. Above the smoke, 3 FPV drones circled, silent witnesses streaming every second of a factory turning into fire. By 3:40 a.m., the blast had done more than destroy a building, it had fractured a supply chain. The firestorm consumed 5 MLRS production lines, and chemical runoff from the destroyed furnaces bled into the Desna River, spreading a toxic slick across 48 kilometers of waterway. The Southern Railway hub, responsible for moving nearly 30% of Russia's western ammunition flow, was shut down within the hour. Within 72 hours, the effects rippled outward. Fuel for Kh-59 and Iskander systems dropped by 22%, halting dozens of artillery units in Kursk and Belgorod. Hundreds of flatbed trucks loaded with Grad rockets stood idle, engines cold, waiting for propellant that would never arrive. In Moscow, satellite data confirmed what state channels refused to say. A single coordinated strike had paralyzed 1/3 of the country's rocket logistics. The ministry's emergency memo ordered the redeployment of 2 S-400 divisions from the front to protect what remained of Bryansk's industrial corridor. That shift opened a 260 square mile blind zone along the eastern front, an unguarded window Ukraine would soon exploit. What began as 3 missiles had become a logistical landslide. And in that sudden silence, Russia's war machine began to run out of breath. In the days that followed, the Bryansk sky glowed faintly at night, a dull orange scar visible from orbit. NASA's firm satellite logged a thermal anomaly spanning 14 square miles, while Russian state media referred to it only as a minor industrial incident. But the numbers told another story. Over $690 million in destroyed infrastructure, 42% of the nation's solid fuel output gone, and hundreds of kilometers of railway sealed under chemical quarantine. Telegram channels flooded with footage, fire pillars, collapsed hangars, rivers glowing with chemical residue. Civil defense sirens echoed through the industrial belt for hours, but Moscow remained officially silent. Inside the Ministry of Defense, intercepted reports described a sharp 19% drop in artillery fire across the southern front within just 5 days. Ammunition convoys from Kursk to Belgorod halted mid-route, their manifests marked pending resupply. The psychological fracture was just as deep, the myth of an invulnerable defense grid. The billion-dollar shield had cracked under a $1.5 million swarm of drones and a handful of precision missiles. By October 26th, even Russian analysts admitted it privately. The enemy hadn't just destroyed a factory. They'd rewritten the rules of modern warfare and turned Russia's greatest fortress into a lesson in overconfidence. 40 minutes. That's all it took to turn a fortress of steel, fuel, and pride into a crater of silence. The Bryansk strike wasn't just a tactical win, it was a warning written in fire. 3 missiles and a handful of drones rewired the meaning of air power, proving that precision and intellect can bankrupt an empire faster than bombs ever could. As the smoke cleared, the myth of invincibility dissolved. Satellite feeds caught the final glow, the last heartbeat of a billion-dollar system defeated by algorithms and courage. And now the question shifts to you. If one operation could cripple 40% of a superpower's rocket fuel in a single hour, what do you think Ukraine's next target will be? Stay alert, analyze deeply, and if this debrief changed how you see modern warfare, hit subscribe, share your thoughts, and join us on the next Frontline.